Nam Shristam Manam Vishuchiputram Atra Surupam Rupam Tasya Prajapurim Maturim Goshtuvatim Radha Kundalarivanam Ahuradikau Madhuvasam Rapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Guru Tamnatus Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadare Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah Ananda Vilamaya Vigrahaya Dema Bhadavyascha Visundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Bhaktya Vina Aparada Dakshe Chilpas Chakavani Mama Kripanidhe Sopriya Charna King Kurin Kuru Tavayvasmi Najivami Tvayavana Jivikyaya Devi Tam Namam Chanantikam. First of all, I offer my Sastang Dandavat Puspanjali, my heart like flowers thousands of times, at the lotus feet of my holy master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmatiya Paramarathatama, Guru Pada Padma, Nitya Pravishta Om Vishnupar, Ashtotara Satasvi, Rupanuga Acharya, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami. Secondly, I offer my pranam thousands of times at the lotus feet of my Parama Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all of our Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Parampara. And finally, I offer my pranam to all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Vantakalpatarusha, Upasam Yogavata, Muditanam Parami Vaishnavas. By the causeless mercy of Sri Guru and Gauranga, we have assembled together to hear for some days the Vrindavan Amrita, the nectar of Vrindavan. So yesterday we discussed how this Vrindavan, this Braja, is the Antar Mandal of the Goloka planet. And if Sri Radha Krishna are worshipped by Vaidhi Bhakti, then one will attain Golok, but will not attain Vraja, which is the glorious place of the eternal pastimes of the Ujjvala Rasa, the Jaya Jaya Ujjvala Rasa, Sarva Rasa Sa. Parakiya Bhave jo hai, Vrajate pracha. Only in Braj that highest Ujjvala. Ujjvala means blazing, shining. Highest rasa of the Parakiya mood is there in Braja. So, morning time, everyone's mind is very fresh. So we want to discuss the tattva of Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti, and how this Raganuga Bhakti leads to the service in the pastimes of the Parakiya rasa. So first of all, as a prelude, it's necessary to discuss what is Uttam Bhakti itself. Anyabhilashta shunyam jnana kamadyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushiram bhakti uttama. That bhakti, that devotion, is uttama. Ut means above, beyond, tama, the darkness of material existence. So bhakti is not a material phenomenon. So that bhakti is uttama if, and only if, it will be the anyabhilashta, shunyam, completely devoid of even the slightest scent of any anyabhilash, ulterior motives. Anya means other, and abhilash means the aspiration, desires. So when once bhakti has no extraneous desires, no other motive at all, except for the benefit of Sri Krishna, then it's called anyabhilashta, shunya. It should be jnana kamadyanavritam, not covered by karma, jnana, yoga, tapasya, or faith in any other process. Because the faith in bhakti, shraddha tvanyopaya varjam bhakti mukhi chitta vritti vishesh. Bhakti is a special inclination of the heart, which is forever inclined to acts of service to the Supreme Lord, forsaking all other processes, all other paths, such as karma, jnana and yoga. What is karma? Karma means reward-seeking activity. Especially in the Vedas, so many different types of pious activities and ritualistic performances have been described, by which one can be elevated to higher and higher status. One will become wealthy, beautiful, educated, powerful, learned, and one can go to the higher planets, to Swargalok, to enjoy the very relatively, compared to this world, but long and intense types of physical and mental enjoyment in Swargalok, the heavenly planets. This is called karma. And then there is jnana. The karma is a way of exploiting, enjoying the material world. And the jnana is a way of rejecting, renouncing the world. So both exploitation and renunciation, they're both against the true nature of the soul. We don't exploit and we don't renounce, but we dedicate. Bhakti is the path of dedication. So the jnanis, they are simply trying to get mukti, to become free from suffering. The yogis, they try to attain some mystic power and in the end also attain mukti, liberation, of merging with the Paramatma. So if one has faith in any of these processes, then his faith in bhakti becomes covered. The difference between the path of bhakti and all of these other paths is that the path of bhakti is the avrohapanta. It depends on the descent of mercy. It depends upon divine intervention. Whereas all the other paths are arohapanta. They are the ascending path. In other words, they are the expression of the mentality of the elevationists. Those who believe that they can elevate themselves on the strength of their own endeavors. So this Arohapanta is very, very, let us say, a habit, a very solidified habit that the conditioned souls have in this world. Whenever they try to approach some type of material activity, of course, and even spiritual activity, it overflows into their religious life. And they think, by my own power, I will elevate myself. So this Arohapanta, it always leads to puzzlement. A person may feel, yes, I'm elevating myself, I'm becoming better, and closer to my goal by my own strength. But in the end, they'll discover that they have nothing. Arura Krishchena Parampatam Tata Patantidan Adrita Yushmadang Raya. It said in Srimad Bhagavatam that by hard austerities, the mumukshu, those who desire liberation, rise up to a very higher state in the mode of goodness, where they consider themselves, they think that they are liberated. But then, due to finding no shelter there, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, then they have no foothold in a higher realm of consciousness, so they slip down again, due to neglecting the service of Sri Krishna's lotus feet. So this Arohapanta, self-elevationism, it always ends in the fiasco, actually. So this mentality has been shown in many places in Shastra. For example, Ravan, he was thinking, why do people have to do so many yajnas to go to heaven? I'll build a staircase to heaven, and everyone can climb that stairway to heaven without doing all these Vedic yajnas. This was his idea. So the Arohapanta, the mentality of I will elevate myself, this is the really essence of the material mentality, the anti-spiritual mentality. So jnana kama dhanavritam, one's bhakti should not be covered by that mentality, because we can bring that also into our devotional service. Yes, I will break through into the Goloka Vrindavan, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, by my determination. No. So that Aroha mood of the elevationists, it is very much against bhakti. Why is that? Because it is born from ahankar, the false ego. The katritra abhiman, that I am the doer. But this I who is the doer is not you. That is only the material covering of the self. So the Arohapanta is the attempt to make progress in spiritual life on the basis of one's very compounded and solidified material ego. It's not happening. So bhakti begins with the Shanagati, surrender. Pranam, to bow down. Na maha, na means nibriti, to give up. Ma means aham mameti, the concept of I and mine, related to the physical body and mind. Another example of the Arohapanta is Gajendra. Gajendra the elephant. He was in the heavenly planets and he had so many female elephants, he was enjoying with them in the water of a beautiful lake. And then what happened? A crocodile came and began to bite his leg, and he was locked onto his leg with a very tight grip. And the elephant was trying to drag the alligator, the crocodile, onto land, because the elephant is stronger on the land, and the crocodile was trying to drag the elephant more into the deep water because he has the advantage in the deep water. So there was a tug of war, pulling backwards and forwards. So it was in the higher planets. It went on for thousands of years. Gradually, the power, the strength, the endurance of Gajendra the elephant was depleted until he had no more strength left. And then at the last moment, he surrendered, "Oh my Lord, I take shelter of you, kindly save me." And then, at that moment when he surrendered, then the Supreme Lord appeared, and by his trunk he plucked a lotus flower from the water and offered it. He didn't even ask to be saved, actually. When he surrendered, then he saw the Supreme Lord, and then he took the flower and offered, "This is for your happiness." Even he was not asking to be delivered. But anyway, the Lord delivered him. So, this experience of Gajendra, we should try to see in what way it's relevant to ourselves. For how long will we struggle in the endeavors which are initiated from the platform of egotism? You can put on tilak with egotism, you can put on kantimala with egotism, you can go to Mangalati, you can sing kirtan, you can study. All the activities that we see of bhakti we can do, initiated from the Katatra Abhiman, from our material ego. But in that condition, the true nature, the swarup of Shuddha Bhakti will not manifest, because it will be Jnana-kama Dhanavritam. The true nature of Bhakti is covered by Karma, Jnana, Yoga, etc. So it should not be Karma, Jnanadi, Avritam. Rupa Goswami says, Karma, Jnanadi, Anavritam, not covered by these things. So, surrender does not mean, "Oh, I will wave a white flag." You can wave a white flag also with ego. This is not so. So surrender has the two aspects. That is, all the activities of our body, mind and words should be engaged. And at the same time, the sakshi, the soul, which is the witness of the activities of the body and mind, he should give up the identity. I am the doer of the activities of the body and mind, but I am the witness. It's being situated in Shakshitva. This is the symptom of that the person has actually surrendered, that they actually pranad pisunichena, or that they are entering into the Uttama Bhakti. So, Anyablastashunyam Jnana Kama Dhanavritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Bhakti Uttama. What we have described so far, being free from all worldly desires, and that the faith is not covered by the mentality of karma, jnana, yoga, etc. These are the tatastha lakshana, or the marginal characteristics of bhakti. The actual swarup lakshana, or the intrinsic characteristic of bhakti, are described by Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Shil dhatu, the verbal root shil, means cultivation. So bhakti is the Anushilanam. Anu means continuous, Nirantaryamai. And Anu means Anugatyamai, under guidance. So being under the guidance of Sri Guru, who is the manifestation of the Lord. We see, Radha Krishna, they are on the altar. They are the Advaita Tattva, supreme non-dual reality. But see, Krishna is non-different from his form, qualities and associates. So Sri Guru is an associate. So the picture of Sri Guru is also kept there, because Sri Guru is part of that reality as well. So how can we become part of that reality? By being in the anugatya of Sri Guru. Otherwise not. So Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Anushilanam means the continuous, under guidance of Sri Guru, Anugatyamai, Nirantaryamai, continuous cultivation of all activities of the body, of the mind and words, which are anukul, meant exclusively for the benefit of Sri Krishna, then that is called Uttama Bhakti. So we can see, can put our hand on our heart and say and measure to what extent how all of our activities of body, mind and words exclusively for the benefit of Sri Krishna or not. Have to consider this. Then it will be Uttam Bhakti. Now, this Uttam Bhakti has 3 stages. Sadhana Bhakti, Bhav Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti means the process by which we attain the state of Bhav. So, Kritisadhya Bhavatsadhya Bhavasa Sadhana Beda Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakatyam Riti Satyata. Kriti. The senses are being engaged in the angas of bhakti, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, offering prayers and so on. Sadhya bhavat, by which one can attain his sadhya, his goal. So kriti sadhya bhavat sadhya, sadhana sadhana vida. That is called sadhana. This sadhana has a potential. That potential is Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakatram Riti Satyata. The moods of love of Sri Krishna's eternal associates, they are without beginning or end. They are an eternally established reality. So, that which is the goal of sadhana bhakti is not the attainment of something which is newly created. But that bhav, that ecstatic love for Krishna already exists. As a vritti, as a movement of the Samvit and Ladini Shakti, the consciousness and bliss potency in the hearts of Sri Krishna's eternal associates. So when we engage all of our senses in the angas of bhakti, the potentiality of this engagement is that Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakatyam Riti Satyata, that already eternally and perfectly existing current of love in Sri Krishna's, the hearts of Sri Krishna's associates, Prakatyam Riti Satyata, becomes manifest in our hearts. This is what sadhana is for. So sadhana bhakti is to attain bhav bhakti. What is bhava bhakti? Shuddha sattva visheshatma prema suryansu samyabhak ruchi bis chitamasrenya kridaso bhava uchate. Here the word Shuddha sattva means the samvit sarvriti, the essence of the function of Sri Krishna's own internal potency of awareness, consciousness, samvit savriti. And visheshatma means the ladini savriti, the essence of Sri Krishna's pleasure potency. These two together, Shuddha sattva visheshatma, prema suryanksu samyabhak. Prema is like the sun, and just as the rays emanate from the sun, so this bhav is like a ray emanating from the sun of brain, and it is composed of these two energies, samvit and hadini vritti. And they come and they enter into the chitta of the living entity. And then what happens? Ruchi bis chittamasranya kridaso bhava uchate. This is called bhav when the chitta of the living entity melts with ruchi. Ruchis, tastes. Ruchi bihi means by the tastes in plural, because there are 3 of them. So, first of all, what is chitta? Everyone should know what is chitta. The psychological body, the subtle body of the living entity, is called chitta. And when it is, the chitta itself is very sattvic. And when it becomes contaminated by rajas, it condenses, it grossifies and becomes prana. So chitta itself is niskriya. It has no action, it has no movement because it's sattvic. But when it's touched by rajagun, then it condenses and begins to flow. And that is called chitta vrittis, or movements of prana within the chitta. And all of our thoughts and feelings and ideas are simply our subjective experience of those chitta vrittis. When those chitta vrittis condense more and they become semi-permanent, solidified shapes, that is called samskar, impressions. So all the time our chitta is moving, giving us perceptions of the external world, and those perceptions are then captured. And then they sink into the subconscious mind in the form of samskars, impressions. When we retrieve those samskars into our conscious mind, that is our functioning of memory. So the chitta, it has its worldly functions in accordance with sattva, rajas and tamas. But when this vritti, transcendental vritti of samvita and ladini, enters into the chitta, then the chitta melts and becomes one with Krishna's internal potency. So now only spontaneous, beautiful, spiritual thoughts, which are exclusively for the pleasure of Sri Krishna, are going on in the mind. So ruchi bis chitta masrinya, the chitta is melted, and that melting is experienced subjectively as three tastes, as being caused by three tastes. The first one is the Bhagavad Prapt Abhilas. All three tastes are actually Abhilas, desire. The spiritual desires themselves give pleasure. This is the amazing thing. You see, in the material world, if you have a desire, that desire is like a pain, unless you get the object of your desire. But the spiritual desires themselves are composed of taste. So when you have a spiritual desire, the spiritual desire itself is the cause of as well. But the desire itself is joyful. The joy or happiness means the expansion of the chitta. The chitta, the consciousness is expanding. So the spiritual desires cause the expansion of the chitta. You see? The chitta is accommodated by akash, or space. So the Sanskrit words for happiness, sukha, ka means akash. So sukha, beautiful space. When your chitta is expanding, that's what you experience as happiness. Sukha means beautiful space. And when your chitta contracts, dukkha, that means your chitta is contracting. And it's you're becoming more and more narrow-minded, more and more fixated on one thing. And you feel kind of psychologically claustrophobic and trapped. That's suffering. So happiness and distress, sukha and dukkha, is simply the expansion or contraction of the chitta. That's happiness and distress. So in this world, when we have some desire due to past sanskars coming to our mind, if it's not fulfilled, our chitta contracts. But the spiritual nature is such that when the desire to serve Krishna comes, it expands the chitta, so the desire itself is of the nature of happiness. So devotees don't look for happiness, they just want to serve Krishna, and they're happy in that. See, Krishna said to Braj Gopis, I cannot repay you for your love. So let your own sadhuta, your own qualities of being a sadhu, your own generosity, your own liberality, your own love itself is the reward for your service. Because there's no happiness greater than that devotion itself. So Bhakti doesn't have a goal. Bhakti is the means and the end. Bhakti is the sadhya and the sadhana. It is not like jnana. Someone's trying to get knowledge, and by doing that he's looking for liberation, which is something different. Or someone is doing karma in order to attain something. But bhakti is the process, and bhakti is the goal as well. So, ruchibis chittamasranya, the first taste which melts the heart, is bhagavad prapt abhilas, the desire to attain Krishna, so that one may serve him. That's the second desire. Anukul abhilas, the desire to render some favorable service to Krishna, to please him. And the last one, sohara abhilas, the desire for Sri Krishna's welfare. This is why the Aishwarya Gyan makes praying, love, weak. Because if you have a conception of God, that He is all-powerful, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, self-satisfied, then you may think, yes, oh, may He be happy. But you know anyway He's going to be happy whatever you do or say. You see? So the sohar, the feeling of well-wishing, that the heart is shining. That's the nature of love, that you think of the object of your love and the only thought that you have is what's best for them. So when there's Aishwarya, the concept, the awareness of God's Bhagavata, then the love becomes weak because He's going to be fine by you serving Bonat. Whereas when there's the absence of the Aishwarya Dhyan, and Krishna's a naughty young boy who gets hungry, cold, thirsty, tired, who maybe perhaps does things which are not in his own best interest even, then the feelings are flowing to take care of him. Sometimes too, he needs some chastisement for his own good. He needs to be nourished, he needs to be protected, because he is vulnerable. So then, it is only really in Ragamag that the sohar abhilas is shining to its full degree. So, when we're discussing, what are we discussing? The definition of? Bhav Bhaktiya. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma Prema Suryang Susamyabhak Ruchi Bis Chittamasranya Krida Sobhava Uchite. The heart becomes melted because the transcendental vrittis, Sambit and Ladini, enter into it, and the tastes arise which cause the heart to melt. Where is Krishna? How can I serve Krishna? And may He be completely happy and satisfied by this service. So that is called bhav. Now Rupa Goswami Pad has explained the way in which this bhav appears. He said, Avir bhuya mano brito brajanti tat sarupatham swayam prakash rupapi vasamana prakashavat vastuta swayam aswada nsurupaya vartistvaso krishnadi kamakaswada hetutvam pratipadyate. These two verses are very important and very foundational. If you can catch these verses from chapter 3 of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, they will be your best friends all the way through Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and all the way through Ujjwala Nilamani to the end even. But if you missed it out, then all the later installments of Sri Rupa Goswami's dispensation will remain vague and confusing. Rupa Goswami is saying, first of all, Avirbhuya. The appearance of bhakti is like an avirbhav. Just as, let's say for example, Lord Ramachandra. During the Treta Yuga, then he appears from his divine high platform, he manifests in the way which is visible to people of this world. So that is an avirbhav, like an avatar, a descent of the Lord into this realm. So Bhakti is like that. Avirbhuya Manobritto. It is an avatar of Sri Krishna's internal potencies, Samvit and Hladini, where Manobritto, that means in the Chitta Vrittis. Your prana is moving, in your mind producing all your thoughts, but now you have surrendered and attuned yourself to the thoughts of your Guru and your Guru Parampara. By serving Sri Guru, Yasya Deve Parabhakti Yata Deve Tatagaro Tasyaita Katitayata Prakshante Mahatmana. It is said that the meaning of all the scriptures is revealed to that person who is dedicated to his Guru as he is dedicated to Sri Krishna. So the meaning is Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Seva Upadekshanti Te Gyanam Gyanas Tattvadarshanaha. That if the disciple has 3 brittis in his consciousness, that is the Pranipat Vritti, the mood of surrender, to be prostrated always at the lotus feet of Sri Guru and his Parampara, Pranipat Vritti, and Pariprashna Vritti, the mood of inquiring, what is the goal of my life? Who is Krishna? How can I find Krishna? And all activities, all sadhana is that search for Sri Krishna. And Seva Vritti, how can I serve? So when there's no other Vritti in the consciousness, no worldly Vritti, except for the mood of surrender, inquiry and service, then Upadeksyanti Te Gyanamas Tattvadarshana. Those who are Tattvadarshi, who have seen the truth, they can impart that into the heart. So when our Chitta Vritti has become attuned, our heart's desire become attuned with the desire of Sri Guru, then Avirbhuya Manobritto, the transcendental Samvit and Hladini Shakti enters into our Chitta Vritti and begins to take over. Brajanti Tat Swarupatam means the movement of the spiritual energy becomes one with the movement of our own thoughts. Brajanti Tat Swarupatam. Therefore, Swayam Prakasha Rupapi, even though this bhakti is Swayam Prakash, it is self-illuminating. Bhasamana Prakasyavat. It seems as if it's your thought. Oh, I'm having this thought now. I'm remembering this pastime. But the devotee is remembering a pastime that he's never heard or saw before. So you cannot remember something you haven't seen before. So that means that the spiritual energy has entered and become one with the Chitta Vritti, and Swayam Prakash Rupapi, it is self-manifesting. So Srila Rupa Goswami Pad says that the Samvit Vritti, it manifests, it gives awareness, consciousness of Krishna and of yourself. Your actual self, not the ego. And so, some people think that when we're in material consciousness, there's a subject and object. I am the subject and the object is this world. But when we become transcendental, then the knower, the method of knowledge and the object of knowledge, there is Triputi Vinash. That means destruction of these 3 things, and they become one, and then Aham Brahmasmi. I am the light. They think like this. They think that how can you remain an individual in the non-dual reality? And so the answer is here, yes, you remain an individual in the non-dual reality because the Samvit Shakti, the internal potency of the Supreme Lord, will manifest both Krishna, the object of your experience, and your own identity, let's say, Shuddha Ahankar, your pure ego. Both. So the subject and object is there, but the reason it's non-dual is because they're both spiritual. They're both manifest by the same spiritual energy, Samvit Shakti. Whereas in this world, the subject is the jiva is the consciousness. His consciousness is being captured by the ahankar, the material concept of a subject, and his object is also material, like that. So instead of having the subject and object duality established by the material energy, now you have subject and object established by the spiritual energy. So that is the function of Samvit Shakti. So then what is the function of Hladini Shakti? So Rupa Goswami has described Swayam Prakasha Rupapi Vashamana Prakashavat, the function of Samvit. Now he's coming to the Hladini. He says that Vastuta Swayam Aswada. Actually, this Hladini Shakti is self-relishing. In other words, itself is composed of tastes. So the desire, just the desire to serve Krishna, to be with Krishna, to serve Krishna, and for Krishna to be happy. As soon as that desire is there, it's already producing taste and joy. So it's Vastuta Swayam Aswada Srupaiva Ratischa. So, but Krishnadi Kama Kaswada Etatvam Pratipadyate. It's also the cause of tasting, see Krishna's beauty and qualities and pastimes. Why? Because you cannot have the enjoyment, the relishment of food unless you're hungry. If you're not hungry, then there's no... So unless you are filled with the desire to please Krishna, then when you actually please him, you'll not feel more joy. You see? So, the Hladini Shakti is itself self-relishing in the form of one's own taste, and it's also the cause of tasting the sweetness of Sri Krishna and his activities, his pastimes. So these are the functions. The Samvit Shakti gives the awareness. It is a consciousness potency. It gives consciousness of Krishna and consciousness of yourself. Subject and object. And the Hladini Shakti fills you with joy in the form of ruchi, desires to serve and please and taste. And that, of course, is the cause of relishing, that more happiness when you actually have the chance to directly serve Sri Krishna. So, this bhakti is relishable in meeting and separation. Because in separation, the desires to serve Krishna and meet with Krishna are higher and higher, so it causes the ulas, the expansion of the chitta. And in meeting with Krishna, when one actually serves him, then it's the cause of tasting his sweetness, in addition to the fulfillment of those desires to serve. Of course, in separation, Sri Krishna also appears to the devotee in separation as well. So there's the relishment of Sri Krishna's sweetness in separation also. So here, in the beginning of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the 3rd chapter, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad is describing first what is Uttam Bhakti, what is Sadhana Bhakti, what is Bhav Bhakti, how this Bhava Bhakti is the combination of Samvit and Hladini, and how this Samvit and Hladini function in the realm of spiritual activities. It's a very wonderful thing. And if you can become familiar with that your heart can accommodate this, then some insights will come into the nature of prem, sneha, man, pranay, rag. When you come to Mahabhava and all these stages, without this there's no chance ever of understanding what that subject is about. And we'll see later today the application in that higher realm. So then, Sadhana Bhakti, Bhav Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. Prema Bhakti is the mature stage. When Bhav becomes fully mature, it becomes Prem. The only difference is in the state of Bhav, it is not so, the heart is melted, but it is not fully melted. So the definition of Prem is Samyak Masrita Santo Mamatati Shayankitaha. That's when the Samyak Masrita Santo, when the chitta is completely melted and it becomes filled with Mamatati Shayankita, Atishai Mamata, extreme possessiveness for Sri Krishna. Then Sa eva sandratma. And the ananda, the joy, becomes very condensed. Then that is called prema. So these are three stages. In the stage of bhav, there's still some experience of klesh, the causes of suffering. The kleshas are still present to a very small degree. But in the stage of prema, then one is a siddha. Then avigyata kila klesha. There is no awareness of this, even the slightest worldly suffering in the state of prema. Now, we've discussed Uttam Bhakti, then its divisions, Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti. Now, we're coming to the internal divisions within sadhana. Sadhana is of two types, Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. So what is Vaidhi Bhakti? Yatra Raganavaktatvat Vaidhi Bhakti Vitani tu. Sorry. Yatra Raganavaktatvat Pravriti Upajayate Shashanena Eva Shastasya Sa Vaidhi Bhakti Uchate. The meaning is that yatra, in which, where there is the raga anuvaktatva. There, one has not become permeated with rag. Here rag actually means ruchi in rag, taste. In the rag is loving, premamoyi trishna, the loving thirst. A thirst to serve Krishna. That is a premamoyi trishna. That is called rag. So a sadhak in this world, he does not have that rag, he cannot have that rag, but he can have taste in it. So if a person has not developed taste in that premamaya trishna, that rag, spontaneous love of the associates of Sri Krishna in Vrindavan, then why is he rendering devotional service in the first place? If his taste is not driving him, what is driving him? So pravriti upajayate, the pravriti means that which instigates your activities. The pravriti is this, shashaneva naiva shastrasya, the injunctions of scripture. Scripture says, you are not this physical body, you are an eternal soul, you are part of God. Your true glorious prospect does not lie in this temporary plane where everything vanishes like smoke in the midst of time, never to be seen again. No, you're an eternal being, and your glorious prospect lies in the service of God. So you should serve the Supreme Lord in this way, by doing this, this, and this. You should, in the morning, go to the temple room with the tilak and ring the bell, give pranams to the Lord. Wake up, touch the Lord's feet and wake up the Lord with this mantra, and so on. Then you should offer a toothbrush for cleaning his teeth and some mouthwash, all of these things. So there are some rules and regulations how to serve Krishna. And by this, gradually, you become purified and attain the service of God. And if you don't do this, then what will happen? You remain in the karma chakra. Simply like an animal running here and there, trying to find the next thrill. And in the meantime, becoming bound up in one catastrophe after another. And with the grand finale called death. And then you die and do it again. So then a person thinks, he's looking at the two options, okay? Follow these rules and regulations and serve God, or wander around looking for the next thrill and just becoming entangled in sins and so on, and the old age, disease, death again, and he thinks, oh, I should follow this path. So he uses his intelligence, he studies the Shastra, he analyzes the Shastra. By this he calculates what's the right thing to do, and he chooses the most auspicious path for himself. and then he engages in the service of the Lord in accordance with the guidance of the scripture. So he remembers even his kirtan and his smara is guided by scripture. Oh, it's morning time. Now I have to remember Tato Vrindavanam Jayat Paramananda Varnanam. I am in Vrindavan on the bank of Jamuna. All the flowers are blossoming and so on. So even his memory of remembrance of Sri Krishna and Vrindavan, he's doing it according to the guidance of scripture. So this is all Vaidhi Bhakti, or the path of Archan. Now, what is Raganuga Bhakti? Raganuga Bhakti means that Bhakti which follows the Rag of the eternal associates. So, before one can understand what Raganuga Bhakti is, first you have to understand what is the Ragatmik Bhakti, the love of the eternal associates. So, Srila Rupa Goswami said, Ishte Swarasiki Raga Parama Vistata Bhagat Tanmayi Ad Bhagat Bhakti Satra Raga Mikoditaha. Ishte. Ishte means the object of your love. In the object, your Ishta. Ishta is the object of your love. Whatever is the form of your worshipful deity. So Ishte is in. In that worshipful deity, you have Swarasiki Raga Paramavistata Bhavat. There is Rag. What is this Rag? It is Swarasiki Paramavistata. Raga is Swarasiki Paramavistata. Swarasiki means spontaneous. According to one's taste, natural, completely natural. In other words, it is not premeditated. It is not calculated. It is not, well, let me look it up in the book what I have to do next. It is Swarasiki, completely natural and spontaneous. Paramavistata. Paramavistata, avista means absorption. So paramavista, supreme absorption, is stay in the object of your love. So the natural, spontaneous, causeless, supreme absorption in your Ishtadev, in the object of love. Shyam Sundar, Radharaman, that is called Rag. Now, here it said that Rag is the spontaneous supreme absorption. But this is not exactly what Rag is. This phrasing here that Rupa Goswami is using is like the phrase Ayur Gritam. Ayur Gritam Iva. It is like Ayur Gritam. Ayur means lifespan. Your lifespan is Ayur. So there's the knowledge of how to live a long, healthy life is Ayurveda. Say, oh, Ayur Gritam. Gritam means ghee. So there's a saying, Ayur Gritam, it means ghee is life. Ghee is life. Now, is ghee life? No, ghee is not life. But ghee is intimately related to life, because if you have the very sattvic food which is cooked in ghee, with ghee, or you take medicines with ghee, then the ghee has some very wonderful qualities which will extend your life. So when we say Ayogritam, ghee is life, it actually means that ghee is the cause of life. So here, Swarasiki Paramavistata, Rag is Swarasiki Paramavistata. Rag is the natural absorption. No. Actually, Rag is the cause of natural absorption. Just like ghee is life, no, ghee is the cause of life. So Rag is Swarasiki Paramavistata, no. Rag is the cause of supreme absorption. So therefore, what is Rag itself? Rag is Premamoyi Trishna. Premamoyi Trishna, the thirst, which is composed of prema, the desire to please the senses of Sri Krishna. Atmendriya prativancha taribalikam Krishnendriya priti icha dari premanam. The desire to please our own senses is called kama, lust. And the desire to please the senses of Krishna is called prem or love. So when that prem is of the nature of an intense thirst, it is called rag. So naturally, rag is Swaraski Paramavistata. Now that means rag is the cause of a total absorption in every moment in Sri Krishna. So, tanmayi yad bhavet bhakti satta ragatmakodita. The bhakti, which is of that nature, of that intense loving thirst, which leads to the spontaneous absorption at every moment in Krishna, the bhakti which is composed of that is called ragatmik bhakti. And it's not in anyone in this world, but that is the very nature of all of Sri Krishna's eternal associates. Srila Jiva Goswami Pad gives another example of rag. He said that just as the eye is naturally attracted to beauty, let's say you see a crowd of 1,000 people, but one of them is very beautiful, your eye will just go there automatically. And someone says, oh, this person stands out in the crowd. No. The experience is actually that your eye is spontaneously attracted to beautiful things. It just goes there, you don't think. So just as the senses are spontaneously attracted to whatever is excellent, whether it's the form or fragrance or sound or whatever, so each sense is naturally attracted to something which is an excellent sense object. So similarly, that is called rag. So when all of the senses of a person are spontaneously and exclusively attracted only to Krishna, that is the transcendental rag of the spiritual world. And the bhakti of the associates there is of that very nature. So then Rupa Goswami Pad said, Virajantim abhibhaktam brajabasi janadishu ragatnakam anusritya sa Raganuga uchate. The most shining example of rag is found in the residents of Vrindavan. Their bhakti is ragatmik. And that bhakti, which anusritya follows in the wake of their bhakti, is called Raganuga bhakti. So what does that mean practically? Because we're discussing now two types of sadhana. One type of sadhana was Vaidhi, following, which is instigated by using your intelligence to study the Shastra and understand and make informed decisions about how to act. And so you engage in bhakti. And then Raganuga bhakti is the bhakti which is following in the wake of this rag that we've just described. The spontaneous love of the residents of Vrindavan. So then one may say, well, how do you follow them? Obviously, you cannot follow someone that you cannot see or something that you have no experience of. So Srila Jiva Goswami Pad in Bhakti Sandarbha, he describes something beautiful. He said that the heart which has become purified of the anarthas becomes like a spatik mani. A spatik mani means a crystal. So crystal can reflect light. So just as if there's a full moon and a chandrika, a moonbeam shines and it touches the crystal and the crystal begins to shine, illuminated by that moonbeam. So in the same way, when the sadhak in this world, by serving Gurudev, by hearing and chanting, his heart becomes cleansed and it becomes like a spatik mani. Then, when he's hearing the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna from a realized devotee, then this sound vibration is Shabda Brahma, transcendental. So it has a spota dharma, a power to manifest. It is non-different from the subject which is being explained. The Shabda and Shabdi are non-different. Just as Nam and Nami are non-different. The name and the name are non-different. Just as Dham and Dhani, the holy Dham and the person who resides there, Sri Krishna we discussed, are non-different. So similarly, Shabda and Shabdi, the sound and what the sound is referring to are actually non-different. So when a pure Vaishnava is actually doing kirtan, glorifying the pastimes of Krishna, then who is listening? Then that Shabda, it causes a spot, the manifestation of Shabdi. What is being described? Now what is being described here? How Krishna's associates, how Radhika, how Lalita, how Vishaka, how Madhya Yashoda, how Subal, Madhumanga, how Rupa Manjari, Rati Manjari are serving Krishna or serving Radha and Krishna. He begins to see it in his heart. And these personalities, Sri Krishna's associates, themselves they are shining. And from their raga emanates from them, just like the moon illuminate a chandrika coming from the moon illuminates a crystal. So when the devotee is hearing and chanting and remembering, and he has the darshan of those associates, and he's struck with wonder, and the ray of their rag, the chandrika of that associate's rag, touches the crystal of his heart, then his heart begins to glow with joy. It becomes samulasit, fully joyful. Then when he wants to serve Krishna, and his service is actually initiated not by yukti, logic and argument, not by shastra, by the injunctions of the scripture, but his hearing, chanting and remembering is initiated or instigated by the joy that he feels. When the rag of the associates is the chandrika of their rag, is samulasit, illuminating his heart, then that is called Raganuga Bhakti, actually. So it is said that the qualification for Raganuga Bhakti is greed. But this greed is often misinterpreted as a kind of interest. I'm really, really interested in this subject. I'm fascinated by this subject. I like it a lot. But that it can be a very rudimentary type of lobha. But it has to grow and become actually ruchi in the rag, taste in the rag of the associates. And then it becomes that lobha has reached the state of qualification to enter into Raganuga Bhakti. So it's true that right from the beginning, even if a person hardly knows anything at all, but they listen to the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes and they think, oh, this is wonderful, this is amazing. Then their engagement is, they're not doing it because Shastra says this or that, they just feel like, this is wonderful, I want to serve Krishna. So from the beginning, some greed is there, but that very rudimentary form is not the eligibility for Raganuga sadhana. Because remember, sadhana is part of Uttam Bhakti. And so the actual sadhana does not begin until Anyabhilasta Shunyam Jnana Kama Tinavritam. The true nature of bhakti should not be covered, there should not be other desires. That's when actual sadhana begins. So in that stage, he has some Raganuga pravriti, some inspiration for Ragamarg. But he's not qualified for that sadhana yet, so he'll have to strictly follow Vaidhi Bhakti very carefully. Slowly, that person will become qualified. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Vidhi Marga Rata Jani Swadinatra Ratna Gani Ragamaga Karna Pravesh. That person who is associating with devotees in Ragamaga and hearing from them, he will very strictly follow Vaidhi Bhakti. And when his buddhi, his intelligence becomes swatantra, independent from depending on reason, logic and scriptural injunction, because he's experiencing that intense taste in the raga of the associates. Then he enters from the Vidimag into Ragamag. Now, Rupa Goswami himself discusses the eligibility, the symptoms of the eligibility to enter into Raganuga Bhakti. He said, Ragatnikaika nishtaye brajavasi janadisu thasam bhav apyate lubdo bhavat tatradikaravan. The residents of Vrindavan have Ragatnikaika nishta. They're completely fixed in their spontaneous love. Thasam bhav apyate lubdo. And if a person is lubda, that is completely consumed with fascination, completely infatuated with attaining a love like them, then that person has the adhikari, he has the eligibility for Raganuga Bhakti. So one cannot become lubda, completely infatuated with something of which he has no experience. So it requires realization. In the next verse, Rupa Goswami Pad said, Tatat bhavadi madhurye sute dirya rapekshate natra shastram cha yuktim cha talobat pati lakshanam. Tatat bhavadi madhurye. On hearing of the sweetness of the moods of Sri Krishna's associates, how lovingly they are serving him. Then, upon hearing this, then the devotee is inspired by that. He depends on that experience of sweetness to impel him in devotional service. Natra shastram. He's not dependent on the scripture saying, now do this, now do this, now do this. Nacha yuktim cha. He's not dependent on argument and reason. His intelligence is not always having to remind him, oh, I have to wake up, and now what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? But rather, because his consciousness has become colored with the joy of the Vrindavan Leela. So at every moment, he's just thinking, oh, how can I attain this? How can I attain this? So this is the symptom, talobat pati lakshanam. This is lakshana, the symptom of the lobha utpati, the awakening of greed. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he phrases it in this way in his Ragavatma Chandrika. He said that as soon as a person does Guru Padashraya and takes shelter of a qualified Guru in Ragamarg, then he may start to receive that greed. And that greed will grow every day, until he has the vision of his desire, the objective, of his beloved Ishtadev. And then, now he's qualified to, when that realization has come, now he enters into Raganuga sadhana. He sees, oh, how the associates are serving. Now I know, this is what I want. Now how can I get it? And now he takes up the sadhana. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes a verse that was spoken by Sri Krishna to Uddhav. Yathaya tatma paribhrajyate so mat gunakatha shravana bidhanai tatata tat pasyati vastu shukshmam chakshoryatai vanjana samprayoktam. The meaning is that just as a person who has some eye disease, he cannot see clearly, everything is a blur. But the doctor gives him anjan, some ointment, and he applies the ointment every day. Gradually, his vision becomes clear and he can see very fine things again. Tata pasyati vastu shukshma. He sees shukshma vastu, subtle things. So in the same way, as one goes on hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna, the chitta becomes cleansed and cleansed more and more, and gradually that which was not visible or that which was blurry now comes into focus. So Srila Vishwanath Thakur uses this verse to show how greed develops from the very preliminary greed, which comes when we first hear and take shelter really from the heart at the lotus feet of Guru. That greed starts to awaken. How it goes from no vision to a blurred vision to a clear vision of the object. And now this lobe has matured to the point now he can take up Raganuga Bhakti, because you cannot follow someone that you cannot see. So now it becomes clear what the definition of Vaidhi Bhakti is. That Vaidhi Bhakti is Yatra Raga Navaptatvat. That person who does not have taste in the rag, ruchi in the rag, he's obliged. By default he has to do Vaidhi Bhakti, but that person who is internally experiencing the vision of the associate's rag, even someone may have some vision of that, but they have not developed a taste in it yet. And then when they develop a taste in it, and that taste is impelling them, then their activities are called Raganuga Bhakti. Now, this question comes, and I want to clear it, make it very clear. Because some devotees have this idea that you practice Bhakti all the way up to Prem, and then when you get Prem, Premanjana Chiruta Bhakti Vilochanena, then you can always see Krishna. So you're in complete darkness until the point where you get Prem and then you see Krishna. So spiritual vision is not like that. It's not an on and off switch. It's a gradual development. This is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says Chaito Darpanamarjanam. If a mirror is not clean, then you clean it. And the more it's clean, then the more you can see. So there are degrees. And so that was described in that verse we just discussed, spoken by Krishna to Uddhav, applying the ointment on the eyes, that the vision gradually develops more and more and more. So that vision, it starts from the stage of Nishtha. When the chitta becomes steady, then it's able to catch the reflection of Sri Krishna's form. And gradually, that vision of form, qualities and pastimes becomes more and more into focus. So, in the stage of asakti, then you have experience of your swarup. You can see your spiritual form, the abhas, the reflection of the spiritual form. The meaning is this. Perhaps you know that once there was Daksha Maharaj was holding a yajna. He was performing a very big sacrifice, and all the important people of the universe came to that sacrifice. So Lord Shiva was already there, and Lord Shiva was sitting in meditation. When Daksha Maharaj arrived, everyone stood up to honor him, but Lord Shiva did not stand up. So then Daksha Maharaj thought, well, he married my daughter, so he's my son-in-law, he's junior to me, and he's disrespecting me, and Daksha Maharaj became very upset. So he began to rebuke Lord Shiva and even criticized and cursed him. So then there was Lord Shiva left, and there was a big fight afterwards between the followers of Lord Shiva led by Nandi, his bull, and all the ritualistic brahmanas headed by Bhrigu, the followers of Bhrigu. So that episode is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. But later, the question comes, oh, there's a conversation between Mahadev and Parvati, Sati. It's Parvati in her next life. She's Sati in this life. So, why did you not give pranam to Prajapati Daksha when he came? And Lord Shiva gave a wonderful answer. And this verse is very famous, but it's the answer to the question. Why did you not give pranam to Daksha Maharaj? He said, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam Yadiyate Tatra Pumam Apavritaha. It's a very famous verse. The meaning is that Sattvam Vishuddham, Vishuddha Sattva, the plane of pure existence, is known by the word Vasudev. Vasudev is a synonym for the plane of Vishuddha Sattva. Not Sattva Gun of this world, but Vishuddha Sattva, the pure existence of the transcendental realm. So, one name for Krishna is Vasudev. Vasudev means that person who becomes visible in the plane of Vasudev. Or it can mean the son of his father in his Lila in Mathura is called Vasudev also. So Vasudev is the son of Vasudev. The short A of Vasudev, his father becomes long, Vasudev. That's the grammatical way of making one way of making a relationship in Sanskrit. So, the plane of Vishuddha Sattva is called Vasudev. And Lord Shiva said, Yadete Tatra Pumana Pavrata. In that plane, the Param Purush, the Supreme Lord, is Apavrata, uncovered. One can see him uncovered. So Srila Jiva Goswami raises the point that this raises a question. One may say, one can see the Lord uncovered. This is redundant. It's redundant. Why not just say, in the plane of Vishuddha Sattva, you can see him? Why say you can see him uncovered? So the implication of seeing the Lord uncovered in the plane of Vishuddha Sattva is that you can see him, but with some covering, before the stage of Bhav, before the stage of Vishuddha Sattva. But that experience is abhas, a reflection. In other words, the form of the Lord is reflected on one's chitta. But when Bhav comes, then Samvit and Ladini come and they melt the chitta and it becomes one with the internal potency, and then you see him directly. You see? So this is the difference between the darshan of the Lord, which is preliminary starting Ruchi, Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti, and the actual direct Sakshat, the direct experience of the Lord in the stage of Bhav. One is the Abbas in the Chitta, and the other one, Ruchi bis Chitta Masranya, the Chitta melts, and then one has a direct experience. You can see how technically and precisely every single word in Srimad Bhagavatam and every single word of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu and Ujjwala Nilamani, every single word is extremely precise, extremely accurate, and perfectly and scientifically describes the experience of spiritual life. Because Rupa Goswami is not writing theoretically. My Gurudev used to say, now so many devotees are making books one after another, like making chapatis. But the question is, what is the standard of those books? Have they realized what they're writing about or not? But when you're speaking about a person like Shukadev Goswami speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, or a great personality like Srila Rupa Goswami, he's directly experienced everything from top to bottom. And now he's empowered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to precisely describe it. So there's no fluff, there's nothing superfluous, there's nothing fuzzy. Everything is with laser precision. It's very, very, very beautiful. So try to study very deeply what Srila Rupa Goswami has written, and under the guidance of pure Vaishnavas. So Srila Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha has made a very beautiful comment. He said, Nana vikshepavati rucha bhavena ragatmik bhakti shailim anavijanati. The meaning is, rucha bhavena. If there's an absence of ruchi or taste. Now remember, this taste is the taste in the experience of the methods of service of the Brijvasis. So if there is rucha bhav, the absence of taste, one will experience nana vikshepa. That means different types of distraction. The mind is not focused. So there's vikshep, the mind will go here and there. But if taste is there, the mind will be focused. And so if in the absence of taste the mind is distracted, then ragatmik bhakti shailim anavijanati, then that person will not understand, he will not know the ragatmik bhakti shaili. Shaili means paripati, method or way. You know, everyone has their way of moving. Everyone has their way of speaking. Everyone has their idiosyncrasies and ways of acting, behaving. So the residents of Braja, they have a paripati. They have a way of behaving, a way of thinking. As we were discussing yesterday. Radharani said, oh, Krishna's coming. Let's leave before he arrives. That's their way of behaving. Actually, she doesn't want to leave. She wants to stay, but she doesn't want to show to Krishna that she wants to stay, so she makes a show of leaving. So then, because Vrindavan is serving in the Leela, then Vrindavan now manifests the stone chips, so they have to walk very slowly and they can't get away. So, in this way, everything in the spiritual world has its paripati, it has its shaili, its way of behaving. That is called the Braja Niti, the ethics of Braja. Always lying, cheating, competing, the teasing, changing moods and activities all the time. These are all the characteristics of the Ragatmik Bhakti Shaili. So, until one has ruchi, and one is free from the viksha, distraction of mind, then he cannot experience what is the method of behavior of the eternal associates, which are very so cute and sweet and charming. He cannot understand that. Therefore, he cannot follow it. So the actual Raganuga, following the Ragatmik associates from ruchi, when there's ruchi in their rag, then it becomes possible. Srila Jiva Goswami also, when he's describing how the heart becomes like a crystal and the Chandrika, the ray of the rag of the associates, touches it, it becomes overjoyed. He said, then the devotee gets a ruchi in the Ragatmik paripati. The paripati. So paripati and shaili means the same thing. It's the method of behavior, the characteristics of the associates. One gets a taste in that, and it's impelling him in devotional service. So then, that is called actual Raganuga Bhakti. So, it is something quite high. When Srila Prabhupada translates this verse, Tat bhava dimadurye suteti adapekshate, on hearing about the sweetness of the service of the associates, one no longer depends on logic and scriptural injunction. Though it's not directly written in the verse, Srila Prabhupada's translations are always quite on the genius level, fully realized level. He says, when a realized devotee hears about the sweetness of the love of Krishna and his associates, he just spells it out. When a realized, in other words, he's got to be realizing the interactions and realizing the sweetness. And then he's inspired by that. That means that his lobe has awakened. So sometimes persons, they may criticize Srila Prabhupada's translations that, wait a minute, that's not in the Sanskrit, or sometimes people say things like this. But because Srila Prabhupada is fully realized and he doesn't want us to misunderstand, and because many things are implied and suggested, or many things are included in that verse if you see it in the context of everything that came before. So then Srila Prabhupada, his translations are in that way, so masterful, so wonderful. Srila Prabhupada ki jai! So now, we want to come to the subject of how this Ragamarg leads to Braja. The Vaidhi Bhakti will lead to Golok. It's not so difficult or problematic to serve Radha Krishna every day according to scriptural injunctions. But that will not lead to Braja. Unless one is in the association of pure Rasik Vaishnavas and hearing from them, by hearing, slowly, some realization will come, and then the fire of greed will appear in the heart. And then we'll enter into Ragamarg. And this Ragamarg, then this leads to Braja. Now, the speciality of Brajalila is the Parakiya mood. Parakiya mood. That Radha and Krishna, since their childhood, they have love for each other. But then, unfortunately, because Purnamasi Devi, she bought Gargacharya, she attracted him from Mathura to Braj and told him, you have to make the astrological charts of in all the houses of Braja, of the young girls there. And so then Gargacharya made the astrological charts of each young girl and Krishna and told the parents, no, Krishna has a good chart, your daughter has a wonderful chart also, but these two are incompatible. If they'll be married, some untimely ill fate may come to one of them. So then, none of the young beautiful gopis of Braja, including Radhika of course mainly, who had already fallen in love with Krishna in their childhood, it was a great disaster, they could not be married to him, and their hands were given in marriage to other gopis. After some time, they had to leave their parents' home and go and live with their in-laws. But Yogamaya always protects them, that their husbands never see them. It's an ingredient of the lila. So, this Parakiya Bhav manifests, and it's extremely, extremely important. And the reason is this, that without obstacles, then the love of Braj Gopis will not manifest in its highest glory as Mahabhav. Sri Bharat Muni, he has written, Bahu Varyate Kalu Yatra Prachana Kamakatvam Cha Yatscha Durlabhatha Sa Manmatasya Paramarati. When in a loving relationship, that is Bahu Varyate, it is forbidden. Everyone in society says, no, it is wrong. All the scriptures are saying, all the rishis are saying, all the parents are saying. The relationship is completely forbidden, out of the question. Then, this is the very powerful weapon of Cupid that makes love more intense. This is one aspect. Then the next aspect, prachana kamatakvam cha. Because this love is forbidden by everyone in society, then in whose heart that love appears, they have to hide it from everyone. So when love is secret and it has to be hidden, then it becomes more intense also. Just like if you're cooking rice. If you cook rice in an open pot, it will take a long time. So you don't do that. You put it in the pressure cooker, you put on the lid tightly, and then it gets very hot inside and cooks quickly. So in the same way, when you have to keep the lid on your love, then the pressure builds inside and the love becomes very intense. So then, yatscha, yatscha mito durlabhata. And when it's very difficult, the two persons who have love for each other, there are many obstacles, they're inaccessible to each other. So it's very difficult to meet and their meeting is rare. So these three things, the forbiddenness, that it has to be hidden, and also that meeting is very rare and difficult. These are manmatasya paramarati. Manmata, that means Cupid himself. By this he causes the highest attachment between the lover and beloved. Now, Srila Jiva Goswami Pad, who to protect the Sampradaya, and also for those who are only eligible for the Swakiya mood, in Golok, he has written that actually the obstacles are not the cause of the intensity of love. They're only Vyanjak. So there are two terms here, Vyanjak and Karan. Vyanjak means that which makes visible, or that which reveals. That is called Vyanjak. And Karan means the cause of something. So, Srila Jiva Goswami says, Vyanjatyeva natu janayati. The obstacles which are there in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, that the mother-in-law is keeping her locked in the house, she cannot meet with Krishna, that all the eyes of society are on her, and that she is from a very illustrious, aristocratic family with many, many generations of dharmic, religious ancestors. And so in Vedic society, everyone feels the pressure to keep up the reputation of their ancestors. That is called the Kula Gaurava. The dignity of your dynasty is resting on you. If you make any mistake in your life, everyone will say, oh, that whole dynasty is useless. So you have to, it's your responsibility to uphold the dignity of all your ancestors and further it if possible as well. Make the dynasty even more glorious. So everyone feels those pressures in Vedic society. It's something that's kind of being lost today, where, oh yeah, the parents, the grandparents, they're all kind of old-fashioned and out of style, and we're going to do things differently. You see, so the cultural continuity is broken. But Vedic culture is not like that, because the culture itself is perfect. It comes from the Vedas, it comes from God. And so the examples set by the ancestors and their blessings and so on, they're very important to everyone. So, Srila Jiva Goswami Pad, he's speaking of two things. Vyanjaka, that which reveals the power of love, and Kara, the cause of the power of love. So he said that in Vedic society, the obstacles are there, the forbiddenness of society for Radhika and the gopis, obstructing their meeting with Krishna. They have to hide their love, and they're inaccessible to each other. Yes, these obstacles are there, but they're not the cause of the love. They're not the karan, they're only the vyanjak. In the same way, there is the matahasti, the argala. That means a shackle. If an iron shackle is put on the leg of an elephant, and the elephant breaks the shackle, so the shackle is not the cause of the strength of the elephant, but it's the cause of the strength of the elephant being known, being revealed. You discover, and he also discovers how strong he is when he breaks that shackle. So in the same way, Srila Jiva Goswami Pad said, the obstacles in Parakiya Rasa are not the cause of the love, the strength of the love, but they're just the cause of the strength of the love being known. And therefore, it is not necessary for Radha Krishna to be in the Parakiya mood in the spiritual world. They can be here, there can be a Parakiya Leela, and then in the end they meet, Yogamaya can reveal that it was all an illusion, and then Radha Krishna can be married and they go to the spiritual world, and they exist eternally in the spiritual world there, in the married state. Because love is natural, it has its own strengths, and it doesn't require obstacles to make it stronger. So the obstacles are not a cause. And Srila Jiva Goswami gives formidable arguments by quoting Rupa Goswami. Yoga eva bhaved esha vichitraha kopi madanaha yad vilasa virajante nitya sahasrada. He gives the definition of Madan Bhav, Madanaki Mahabhav. The highest love of Radhika is called Madan Bhav. And in the definition it said, Yoga eva bhavet esha, that this love only manifests at the time of meeting, when they are together. And it is the Yoga esha bhavet esha vititrakopi madanaha. It is very astonishing. In this there are bhavs and experiences of so many different pastimes in this Madan Bhav. But the essential point that Jiva Goswami is making here is that when Radha Krishna are fully together, in other words, at that time when there's no obstacle for their meeting, then the highest love is manifest. So saying, just see, the highest love is manifest at the time when there are no obstacles. And therefore, and he's giving praman of Rupa Goswami, and therefore the obstacles are not necessary to experience the highest love. And therefore, in the spiritual world, Radha Krishna, they can be married and experience the highest love. It's not a problem. The Parakiya is not necessary. So he's given a very formidable argument. And, you know, at the time of Srila Vishnacharya Thakur, in the early 1700s, there was, it's just like now, you know, all the devotees are fighting over the jiva issue. Oh, our Sangha is going to split into two parts because someone says that the jiva has a swarup and someone says it doesn't have a swarup, or Bhakti is in the soul or it's not in the soul, like this. Well, there was something like that in the Gaudiya Sampradaya in Vrindavan, but it's in the spiritual world, is that Parakiya or Swakya? That controversy was there. And it became very heated. At one point, some persons, they tried to kill Vishnacharya Thakur over this. So now I'm going to tell you what Vishnacharya said that made everyone want to kill him. Not everyone, but the people in the Swakya party. Srila Vishnacharya Thakur gave such a beautiful argument, and the genius nature of his presentation is that he took Srila Jiva Goswami's own words from his Lochan Rochani Tika. He took some paragraphs of Jiva Goswami's own commentary on Ujjwala Nilamani, and he used that to prove that the Parakiya Bhav is the highest, and that the obstacles which are integral to Parakiya Bhav are necessary for the highest love to manifest. And he's using Jiva Goswami's own words to prove it. And how he does it is very, very clean, neat, and just really charming. So, he explains that there is a definition of Mahabhav. Rupa Goswami gave the definition of Mahabhav. Anuragas vasamvedya dasha prapa pakashita yavad ashrayas vritische bhava ityavidiyate. The meaning is that Mahabhav has three main characteristics. It has many, many characteristics, but with three main characteristics. And that is that prem, love, develops through stages. Prem, sneha, man, pranaya, rag, anurag. The stage before Mahabhav is called anurag. Now, how does this anurag turn into Mahabhav? What are the conditions that make it Mahabhav? So the first one is called Swasamveja Dasha. That means anurag becomes the object of its own experience. I'm not going to discuss that now. The second one is Prakashita. That is, that the Sattvic Bhavs, 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 5, 6 or 7 or 8, even Sattvic Bhavs, become very prominently manifest. So that the intensity of the love which is in the heart is Prakashita, revealed in the body. And then the third symptom is called Yavad Ashray Vritti. Yavad Ashray Vritti. Yavad means as much as. Ashray means the shelter. So there are two ways in which this can be interpreted. That when Radhika or any gopi who has Mahabhav meets with Krishna, then if someone else is there, or any time they have Mahabhav, even in separation, but someone else is there, Yavat, in accordance to their capacity, they can be moved. Their hearts can be churned. They can feel, they can become pervaded by the love of that gopi who has Mahabhav. In other words, her Mahabhav extends in waves from her body and affects another ashray. So someone else becomes the shelter of the effects of that love. So this is very, very wonderful for the Manjaris, the maidservants of Radhika, because they're the only ones who can be there when Radha Krishna are alone and very intimate with each other. So they're close enough to see and hear And the result is that the waves of Radhika's Madanakima Bhav pervade them. And though Madan Bhav is only in Radhika, not in anyone else, but the Manjris can become completely pervaded by the effects of that love. So that's a speciality of following Rupa Goswami. One can experience that love which cannot be experienced by anyone except for Radhika. So that is one meaning of Yavadashray Vritti, the spreading out of the waves of that love. Now Jiva Goswami gives another explanation of Yavadashray Vritti. He says that when Anurag takes shelter of its own shelter to the fullest degree. So here Yavat means to the fullest degree. Just as one may say, Yavat Patram Brahmananam Amantrayasva. The meaning is, invite the Brahmanas who are fully qualified. So you say, Yavat Brahmananam. Yavat Patram Brahmananam. Invite the Brahmanas who are Patram, they are qualified to the fullest extent. So here Yavat Ashray Vritti. Yavat means to the fullest extent, Ashray. The shelter of Anurag, that stage of love, Anurag, is called Rag. Now in this context, Anurag means the love in which the object of love is seen as newer and newer every moment, and the love itself is experienced as newer and newer every moment. That is Anurag. The stage before that is called Rag. That stage of love is defined as Dukam apyadikam chitte suket tattvena rajyate. It is a stage of love where something which would ordinarily become the cause of suffering becomes the cause of joy. For example, Sri Krishna was walking with his cows and cowherd friends in the valley of Govardhan, and he began to play his flute. Radhika was also at Govardhan. She heard the sound of the flute, but she couldn't see Krishna. So she began to climb up the hill, and she was running on the rough, sharp stones. The blazing sun was shining. It was midday and the stones were hot. And she climbed with her very soft, tender lotus feet on the sharp, hot stones to the top of Govardhan. And then she looked and she could see Krishna in the distance. And so, though it was painful to run on those sharp stones, that the experience of Dukh was Sukatvenaiva Rajyate. It became completely dyed by the experience of joy. Raj means dying. Here, Rag indicates dying. Like when you take a cloth and you dip it in dye, and now the cloth becomes completely colored by the new color. So, the stage of Rag is a love where, if it affords one an opportunity to serve Krishna and give happiness to Krishna, then even suffering, just as white cloth becomes dyed with the color of red, becomes pervaded by the color, so the pain becomes completely dyed and pervaded with joy. And so you don't see, just as the white is not seen anymore, only red is seen. So in the same way, there's no misery in the heart at all, but the misery itself has transformed and become a complete state of joy. This is called Rag. We're not talking about that only Raganuga but from before, but the stage of love, just before Anurag. That is the basis of Anurag. Now, Jiva Goswami Pad said, when Anurag takes full shelter of its basis to the fullest extent, then Anurag turns into Bhav. It turns into the Mahabhav. Now what does that mean? So the question here is, when Anurag, its basis is manifested to the fullest extent, that means that the greatest suffering turns into the greatest joy. So Srila Jiva Goswami Pad has said, what is Dukasya Paramakasta? Paramakasta, the highest condition of Dukh, suffering, for Braja Gopis. What is Dukasya Paramakasta? for the gopis. Now you have to bear in mind who are the gopis. First of all, they are Kula Vadu. Kula Vadu. They're young, newly married brides from very illustrious very illustrious dynasties. So for a young bride from an illustrious dynasty, the Paramakasta, the highest condition of suffering, is Swajana Ayapata Brangsa, to fall, to be seen to be fallen in the eyes of society from the path of Dharma and chastity. This is the greatest suffering. And this suffering is worse than fire and worse than death. That's why you would see in Vedic times, if some very chaste wife, if her husband died, then when his body was burned at the cremation ground, out of love, she would just enter into his fire. Why? Because death and fire are worse than living a life without serving the husband.
Better. Not better.
Sorry?
Better.
Yes, sorry. It is better to die and to be burned alive than to not have the chance to serve the husband. So, it would be a terrible suffering to stay alive in that condition. So fire and death, they are not suffering. What is really suffering for a Kula Vadu is that in the eyes of society, everyone will say, oh, you are not following Dharma, you are not upholding the dignity of your dynasty, you are not chaste to your husband. So that the gopis of Vrindavan are in love with Krishna. And when he plays his flute, for them to run to him, then they have to come to that state where their love for Krishna is so intense that the chance to please Krishna turns a suffering worse than fire and worse than death into a state of joy. So that is Yavad Ashray. That the basis, the Ashray of Anurag as Yavat, it has come to its highest point. And then Anurag turns into Mahabhav. You see? So Jiva Goswami has said this. So Vishwanath Thakur in his commentary, he borrows all these statements of Jiva Goswami and says, look, the gopis' love will not turn into Mahabhav unless those obstacles of their relationship being forbidden, they have to hide everything, Krishna is inaccessible. Unless those are there, then their Anurag will not turn into Mahabhav. And therefore, the obstacles are not only Vyanjak, they're not only the cause of the love being revealed, Vyanjak, but they're also Karan. They're a cause of that love becoming the Prakash, actually manifested in the hearts of Braj Gopis, in the behavior, in the lives of Braj Gopis. So, though that love is Nityasiddha, it's eternal and perfect within them, but it does not manifest unless the obstacles are there. So, the Gopis' love is swabhavik, it is natural. It is not that they didn't have that love and then they had it. It was always in their heart. But the cause of it manifesting in the course of the Leela is the obstacles. Understand? So it's Vyanjak and Karan also, both. And therefore, the Parakiya Leela is very, very important. Because if there's only Swakiya Leela, Srila Vishnu Chakra is proving, using Jiva Goswami's own words, that Mahabhav will not manifest. And so what is in that Mahabhav? Oh, as we mentioned before, the Swasamveda Dasha, Prakashita, and Yavadashray Vritti, that its waves affect everything. But it has so many other symptoms. The anubhavs of this love begin with Nimesha Sahtarasanna Janita Ridvilolaran Shanakal Patya Chinatva Sokyepi Atinashanam Kinatvam Sokyepi Ati Sankaya. Mo hatyabhave pyatmadi sarvam vismaranam sada. These are some of the symptoms of Mahabhav. First of all, the time of separation caused by the blink of an eye becomes intolerable. So when Sri Krishna is returning in the evening from the forest, and gopis come to see him, then the eyes blink and they give a curse to Lord Brahma. Atiti yad bhavan ani kananam truti gayate tam pasyatam kutik lakuntalam shimukam chate jada udikshtam pakshma kritdasham. Oh Krishna, when you're in the forest, then one moment seems like thousands of years, but then when you return and we see your lotus face, then the eyes blink, the eyelids fall, and at that time we cannot tolerate the separation even for the blinking of an eye. So that means that Braj Gopis have gone into a completely alternate state of consciousness. Because the blinking of an eye, I think that anyone, doesn't matter how much so-called love they have for anyone else, if they blink, they can tolerate that. But when Anurag, due to taking shelter of its basis to the fullest degree, is transformed into Mahabhav, then the blinking of the eyes becomes impossible to tolerate. Asana janita vidvilolanam. Due to the Yavanasharichi, the spreading out of the waves of love, if anyone is nearby, it churns their hearts. Chanakalpatva. One moment seems to be like 1,000 years in separation. And in meeting, even meeting with Krishna for thousands of years, seems to pass like a second, like less than a moment. In this Mahabhav, even though Sri Krishna is completely happy, Yakte sujata charnam guruham staneshu. If Radhika will hold the lotus feet of Krishna on her heart, Sri Krishna is completely blissful. But Radhika is thinking, oh, perhaps he's feeling some pain. My heart is too hard for his soft lotus feet. So kinatvam tatsoke pati sankaya. Even pleasing Krishna fully, one becomes emaciated with anxiety that somehow or another he's not completely happy. These are some of the astonishing symptoms of bhav. And all these elements of praying, they will not come unless the Anurag will turn into Mahabhav. And the Anurag will not turn into Mahabhav unless there is this whole drama of gopis being married to someone else. And all the obstacles are there. And they have to break through the obstacles in order to meet with Sri Krishna. So Parakiya is very important. So we'll see that Sri Uddhav has said, when Uddhav came to Vrindavan and he saw the love of gopis, then he said, Eita param tanu brito bhuvi gopavadgo Govinda eva nikalatmani rodha bhava Vanchanti yat pavadvayo muneyo vayamcha Kim brahma janmabe ananta katara sasya. So, of all the people who have taken birth in this world, then only these gopis, these vadhu, these newly married gopis of Vrindavan, their lives are fortunate. They are supreme. No one else. Someone may think birth on a higher planet is best. He said, no, bhuvi. Born on earth is better. Someone may say the male birth is better. He said, no, gopabhadvo, female birth is better. Someone may say if someone is not married, they can meet with Krishna. He said, no, bhuvi gopabhadvo. Those who are married to other gopis. So only those who take birth as a human being on earth, as a female, and who are newly married, not to Krishna but to someone else, only their life is successful. That is the highest possible birth of all. Why? Govinda eva nikilatmani ruddha bhava. Because they have ruddha bhava. Now, we're introducing a term here. Ruddha bhava. You can see what was spoken 5,000 years, more than 5,000 years ago in Srimad Bhagavatam. All the terminology is there. Rupa Goswami has realized it and he's written about the stages. Because when Anurag turns into Mahabhav, what is the first stage of Mahabhav called? Ruddha Bhav. Ruddha. Ruddha means if a person is on the ground and then there's a stage, then if you climb onto the stage, now you are Ruddha. You have become elevated to another level. So Ruddha Bhav means that Bhav in which the love is elevated completely to another level. So I said I wouldn't do it, but I'm going to touch on it. So Samveda Dasha. Remember how we said that the Samved Shakti gives the experience of the object Krishna and the subject yourself. Right? So that Samved Shakti is there in all the stages of love. So Mahabhav means when Anurag attains Swasamveda Dasha, that means it becomes the object of its own experience. So within Anurag, there's the subject, you. Let's say not you, let's say a gopi. One day you. So, there's one gopi. So she is the subject and Krishna is the object. When Anurag turns into Mahabhav, now Anurag, there's an Anurag here, is looking at Anurag. So in Anurag there's a subject, that gopi, and there's an object, Krishna. And now Anurag is looking at that, so there's another subject. Looking at that subject and object, both. So it's exactly like Shakshitva. Shakshitva. You see, the material energy gives you an ego, which is the subject looking at the object, the world. And when your mind becomes very steady and absorbed in a trance, then you come to the next level. So that yogi is called, literally in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about the yoga ruddha, the yogi who is aruddha, who has gone to the next level. And the yoga rurukshu, the one who desires to go to the next level. Right? So it's the same words, ruddha. So the yogi, when he goes into a trance, now he's the subject, the soul, and he's looking at his material ego, the subject of this world, and the objects of this world. He can see both. So he's above that, seeing objectively. So in the same way, gopis have no material ego, but their spiritual ego, it's like they have another ego above that. They have Shakshitva towards themselves and Krishna. So this is why Sri Krishna compares the Mahabhav of the gopis to the samadhi of a yogi. Tannavidan maya musanga badha diyam swatman atastaderam yatha munayo yatha samado munayavditaye nadya pravishta eva nama rupe. Hey Uddhav, my gopis, they're so completely absorbed in me that they forget themselves. And they become like a yogi goes into trance. So this Ruddha Bhav means, though gopi, I am Radhika and here is Krishna, I am meeting. But when Ruddha Bhav comes, Naso Ramana Nahama Ramani, Duimana Madhubhava Peshlajani. I am not Radhika, I am not the beloved, and he is not my lover. So it's Ruddha. They have come to another level of seeing. And now, just as a person in Shakshitva experiences, I'm not the doer. But he can see how his body, mind, everything is going on. So, this is why it said in the Ras Lila that Rasutsavaha Sampravito Gopi Mandala Manditaha Yogeshwarena Krishnena Tasam Dvayor Dvayo Tasam Madhye Dvayor Dvayo. Shukadeva Goswami said, then the Ras Lila began. Shukadeva Goswami never said, then the gopis and Krishna began the Rasa Lila. Why? He said the Ras Lila began. Because this Ras Lila is the manifestation of prema. And because prema is manifesting Mahabhav, now Radha and Krishna are not the doer. Prema is doing everything. And they're floating in that prema. This is Mahabhav. It's something extraordinary. Are you catching something? If you don't understand, I think it's my fault. Because I'm not explaining clearly. But the topics that Srila Rupa Goswami is describing, it's there in Srimad Bhagavatam. But unless Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had appeared in this world and empowered Rupa Goswami, no one would know. We said the verse yesterday. Ekas Chaitanya Chandraha Paramakaruniya Sarvamavischakaraha. No one knew what he's praying. No one knew the power of the name. No one knew the sweetness of Vrindavan. No one knew the love of Radhika was the ultimate limit of rasa. Only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discovered all of these things and revealed these things. So this is a fact. This is actually, and this is not that, don't think that if I was saying, yeah, Mahaprabhu discovered the sweetness of Vrindavan because he went to Vrindavan and he discovered Radhakund and Shyamakund, like Christopher Columbus discovering America. That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, Hari Purata Sundara Jyoti Kadamba Sandhipita Sadaride Kandares Pratuva Sachinandana. When a devotee surrenders themselves to Sri Guru and engages in the service of the mission of Sri Guru, and then he gets the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu Sadaride Kandares Pratuva Sachinandana. Mahaprabhu appears in the heart of that devotee. Hari Purata Sundara Jyoti Kadamba Sandipitaha. And he has a blazing golden effulgence. And the golden effulgence of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu obliterates all darkness from the heart of that devotee. And then in the Swarupa Mahaprabhu, that devotee, then he sees Radha Krishna, because Mahaprabhu is Radha Krishna, Rasaraj Mahabhava Militatanu, the combined form of Radha and Krishna. This is what it means, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Aviskrita, that he has discovered and uncovered and revealed. He has done it. He will do it today. If a disciple is fully engaged in the service and the mission of his Gurudev, then he will get the creeper of Mahaprabhu. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it says, Dui Bayi Ridiera Kshalayandaka, Dui Bhagavata Sangye Karna Sakshaka. What is the mercy of Gaurnitai? That these two brothers drive away all the darkness in the core of the heart and illuminate the heart. And by this, they enable one to recognize the gloriousness of the book Bhagavatam and the devotee Bhagavatam. Eka Bhagavata Bara Bhakti Rasa Shastra, Ara Bhagavata Bhakta Bhakti Rasa Patra. Otherwise, before that, no one can understand. What is this Srimad Bhagavatam? There are so many Puranas, so many Vedic literatures. I'm more interested in the Mahabharata. I like the Vishnu Purana. I like Vedanta Sutra. No. Srimad Bhagavatam is all in all. It is on such a level. It is Krishna Vanmaya Murti, direct Rasa Swarupa of Sri Krishna himself. And when the darkness in the heart is illuminated by Gauranga Mahaprabhu, then he recognizes Eka Bhagavata Bara Bhakti Rasa Patra, Bhakti Rasa Shastra, Ara Bhagavata Bhakta Bhakti Rasa Patra. Which pure devotee is filled with Bhakti Rasa, Dui Bhagavata Dwara Diya Bhakti Rasa Tahara Ridaya Tara Prema Hayavash. Then by the action of the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat together, then the mellows of Bhakti Rasa are instilled into the heart of that devotee, and then seeing that Rasa in the heart of the devotee, Krishna becomes under that devotee's control. Tahara Ridaya Tara Prema Hayavasha. Krishna becomes controlled by the prema rasa in the heart of the devotee. So this is how Mahaprabhu is uncovering and discovering and uncovering, revealing the sweetness of Vrindavan, the sweetness of Braja Lila. And he does that through those devotees who are serving his mission, and then they become purified, and then hearing Bhagavatam from a Rasik Vaishnava, then they can realize all of these things. So, here, Ruddha Bhav. Uddhav, when he saw Radharani, he's saying only these gopis are successful because they've got the Ruddha Bhav. What is that? They have ascended to the next level. And that is why he said, Krishna Nachaya, Prema Bhakta Nachaya, Apani Nachaya, Tina Nachi Ekatai. This prema makes Krishna dance. This prema makes the devotee dance. And prema itself is like a third person also dances. All three are dancing together. Just floating in the in the current of praying. I have nothing to do. What is going on? They don't know. So this is the Rudra Bhava. It has so many symptoms. So why are these gopis only successful? Because this is the glorification of the Parakiya rasa. Because without the obstacles, the anurag will not bring the love to the next level. Rudra Bhava, the elevated praying. So then Uddhavji, he says, Asam maho charana renu jusham ashamsyam brindavane kimapi golmalatau sadima. I would be very lucky if in a future life I could become a blade of grass or a shrub or herb in Vrindavan. Why? Because then I could get the foot dust of Braja gopis on my head. What's so glorious about those gopis? Yad juschadya swajana arya pachanta hitva. They have given up something which is very difficult to give up. Swajana aryapat. Now you see, Swajana aryapat, these are the words used in Jiva Goswami's commentary. When he said, what is the greatest pain for Kulavadhu? Swajana aryapat branks, to be fallen from Swajana in the eyes of your family and associates, and Aryapat, the path of the Aryans, the noble path of Dharma, to be considered fallen from them. So we can see how even all the technical words describing why the Parakiya rasa and obstacles are necessary to transform the Anurag into Rudra Bhav is there in the prayers of Uddhav 5,000 years ago. You see? So what Jiva Goswami is writing, what Rupa Goswami is writing, what is being revealed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's not like, this is a new sampradaya making up something. But these are the profound mysteries eternal mysteries of praying, which even the precise description of them is given in Bhagavatam. But without hearing from the Bhakta Bhagavat, there's no possibility of someone understanding what is Uddhav saying here. What's the significance of this? Ya Justya. It is very difficult to give up Aryapat and Swajana, these two things, but the gopis have done it. And therefore, Govinda Eva Nikilatmani Rudra Bhava. They have this Rudra Bhava for Krishna. So, digest. We are here for a few days. I am trying to make some layers, and you have to catch it in your heart and keep it there, because another layer will come on top, another will come on top. This is why it's very necessary to hear with ekagrata chitta, one-pointedness. If the chitta is one-pointed, then by hearing you can catch everything. In fact, this swarup, the very nature of it, appears in the heart, because there's no difference between shabda and shabdi. But if the mind is distracted, as Jiva Goswami said, Nanavikshepavati rucha bhavana, in the absence of taste, there is distraction, and then Ragatmik Bhakti Shailim Anabhijanati. One cannot understand the methods of love, the idiosyncrasies, the weird and wonderful strange ways of love, of the residents of Vrindavan. So it's necessary to hear, and gradually then what will go on? This is called Upasya Pariskriti. Upasya Pariskriti. That means the purification of one's conception of the object of your service. Upasya means the object of upasana. Who are we serving? We're serving Radha Krishna and the gopis, so they're our upasya. Aradhi Bhagavan Brajeshatanya Dhamma Brindavanam Ramya Kachit Upasana Brajubadu Vagena Yakalpita. The upasana of Braj gopis to Krishna is the highest goal. And they are our upasya, they're the objects of our love. So, but who are these gopis? Everyone has an idea. But the reality in the idea, maybe the idea is vikalpa, a non-correlated thought construct. It's not actually related to the real thing. Then how can you follow? So, when one hears about the stages of love, as I explained for example, by Srila Rupa Goswami, Ujjwala Nilamani, what is going on is called Upasya Pariskriti, the purification, the refinement of one's conception of who is our worshipable Srimati Radhika, Lalita, Vishaka, and all gopis of Vrindavan. But if one is not hearing with ekagrata chitta, one-pointedness, then one layer comes, then the other layer comes, then the next layer comes, but the other two layers disappear, and then that layer crashes down, and then it's not what it is. So this hearing with ekagrata chitta, one-pointed attention, is essential to enter into the upasya pariskriti, the purification of the refinement of who it is, who is the object of our devotion. So this evening, tomorrow evening, the next morning, we'll just be giving some layers. So try to digest. I was going to speak on something, but it's this enough for today. We can come to that. You have that verse ready? Okay. So we'll not speak today, but later. Not the evening, because evening is very easy listening in the evening. Morning is for Siddhartha. In the morning you have to work hard, but in the evening, then more people will come, and so it will be easy in the evening. Leela Katha. Yes, Rudranidhi.
I have a question. I'm definitely planning on listening to this class again. It would be very helpful because you made so many references to Bhagavatam, chapter 11, Canto 11, Bhakti Rasamrita, so many things.
Yes.
So when I listen to this and I try to actually get onto the verse itself with the commentary.
Yes.
If you could give us that information, this is from this book, chapter 1, verse such and such, it would be very helpful. Very helpful.
If you want to know some verse, you can write to me what about this verse. But if you just hear the verse, and I say it's from here, then just go to that book, and then you can, everything's available online, and you can search and find it. And so do some homework, and if you cannot find it, then you can ask me, and then I'll send it.
Sometimes the spelling...
But how many verses did I speak in this class today?
Yeah, sometimes the spelling, we spell something a different way that you can never access it.
This is called sadhana. Sadhana is your practice. We have to make an effort. So, when I was always staying with my Gurudev in Vrindavan, and sitting at his lotus feet and hearing every day, every class, I made notes, wrote down everything, not even looking at the notes. Shorthand. And then I would go and then fill in. Whatever I'd done in abbreviated form, fill everything in. And then every verse, because I just wrote down the first word or first few line or something, then I would go and try to find it. If I couldn't find it, go to other senior Vaishnavas. If still I can't find it, I'll go to Gurudev. And in this way, fill in everything. Have to work. Effort. Srinvata sradaya nityam granatas chat sachestitam. Kale na nati dirgena. Ridi Bhagavan Vishate Ridi. The Supreme Lord enters into the heart in a short time, very soon. He comes to that person who listens to Harikatha and takes it very seriously and cultivates it. So one should take it very seriously. Some treasures have been given. One may think, I only caught 20% of it. Now I have to go away and try to discover all the other things. And then be absorbed in that. Always absorbed. Every day absorbed, going deeper and deeper. So for that person, Kalina Nati Dirgena means not in a long time, in a short time. Then Bhagavan Vishateridi, the Lord comes in his heart. That means that he doesn't have to do any effort to remember. Without any effort, he's not trying to remember. The Lord himself is intervening and entering into his consciousness, because Krishna is so pleased by that person who takes Harikatha very seriously. Gaur Premanande. So we should sing little kirtan, and then there'll be Mahaprasadam and the break. Everyone come back. We're starting a bit earlier this evening. It's 5, right? So not